From VTV Channel 6 Studios in downtown Vernal, this is Local Point with your host, Chris Piner.
Hello everyone, welcome to Local Point, sponsored by Ashley Regional Medical Center. I'm David Gale, in for Chris Piner today. Now every now and then on this show, we talk about subjects we wish really weren't a reality here in the Basin. Those topics can range from terminal illnesses to drugs and alcohol. Now, although these topics aren't necessarily pleasant, they are nevertheless a reality. So here's a statistic for you. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men will be the victim of sexual violence. Today's show talks about a walk to increase the awareness of sexual assault. We now welcome into the studio 2 local guests, Tanya Murray of the Children's Justice Center and Alicia Gowan of the Victims Advocate Program. Welcome today to Local Point.
Thank you.
Now to start with, let's talk a little bit about sexual violence, sexual assault, because you know, there may be the misnomer, the feeling among our audience here that kind of thing is really centered in more urban areas. You know, Salt Lake, you know, Boise, go over to California, go over to New York. But that's not necessarily the case, is it?
No, it's not. It's very prevalent here. We see that a lot. We see it with all ages, little kids on up. It's here. There's a Utah statistic that's the 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men, and the majority of those cases, 86%, are actually kids.
Kids? Mm-hmm. Wow.
86% of kids will be assaulted before the age of 18, of victims will be assaulted. So, you know, there's information out there in the nation and in the community that Utah actually leads the nation in rapes per capita. So, you know, when we think of sexual violence, we often think of rape. That's the first thing that comes to mind, or a violent crime or something like that. But sexual violence is actually, it's much broader than that. It's the rape, it's the date that goes too far, that it's the time when someone may need to say no but doesn't know how. It's the maybe someone being touched or molested by a family member or a relative or a stranger or just somebody that they know. Oftentimes we think about strangers and we think that sexual violence just occurs with them, but it doesn't. More often than not, it's with someone that they know and someone they're familiar with.
And 86% of kids? That's in our area?
86% of the victims are kids.
Oh, of the victims are kids. I thought it was 86% of just kids in general, but you're saying 1 in 3 women, 1 in 5 men. And then that's another one that kind of blows me away because, you know, when you think of sexual assault, I guess it's, you know, the misnomer that it's usually directed towards women, but men as well.
Right.
I think there's a lot of social stigmas that make it difficult for men to report, and I think that's where we get this idea that it's typically women, but it's 1 in 3 and 1 in 5 is not that different.
No, it's not.
There's a very high number there of men that are abused.
Do we know the difference between, you know, our area when you're talking about Uintah County, Duchesne, compared to a more urban area? Are we higher or lower?
At the Children's Justice Center, we our average is 1 in 86 kids will be interviewed at the Children's Justice Center for some kind of abuse. The Salt Lake Children's Justice Center, their per capita is 1 in 20 or 1 in 200 kids. So by far, we are much higher than the urban areas.
Any idea why that is?
There's so many different factors that could go into that. A lot of it, though, I think is really education on what do we know, what do we think is sexual violence, and how do we know how to protect our kids and teach our kids to take care of themselves. You know, when we're teaching our youth, that's information that you carry on into adulthood. It continues to protect you when you get out of those risky years. You know, oftentimes an offender is going to look for somebody who's vulnerable, somebody that they can maybe manipulate, somebody that they can really take advantage of. And so we want to teach our kids how to protect themselves. And it's not from the stranger that's going to abduct them on the street corner all the time. It's going to be from a family member. It's going to be from somebody that they know that they may already trust. So how do we teach them to take care of themselves and protect themselves, and what's appropriate behavior and what's not? And we really have to understand that we can't keep saying that it doesn't happen. It does, and we need to do the best that we can to take care of our community.
And I think also when we're teaching our kids that, we also need to talk with them about who they can tell about it, because teaching them those things, they might know it's wrong, but they still might not know how to talk to kids. or other people about it. And so, in fact, for teenagers, 78% of teenagers who are victims will not tell their parents, but 71% of those kids will tell a friend. So as a parent, if you've got teenagers, it's identifying who else can you tell besides me, because maybe they won't feel comfortable telling mom or dad. So it's identifying those other people, some trusted adults, some friends that they know would help them. And then also, from a parenting standpoint, you need to look at that and say, okay, how do I teach my child how to help their friend if their friend came to them? What kind of information would they need? And that's some of what we hope to get across at the walk as well.
Yeah, and speaking of which, we're going to have to take a quick break and show you a word from Ashley Regional Medical Center, but you're going to hear about how you can get involved in this walk that's going to raise awareness in our community about sexual assault. So we'll be right back.
Ashley Regional Medical Center is committed to bringing you the latest advances in technology right here in the Basin. The Radiology Department at Ashley Regional, along with radiologist Dr. David Perry, now offers laser vein therapy. This new therapy can reduce unsightly varicose veins, help with leg pain, and even reduce restless leg syndrome, and requires a minimum amount of your time. Stop hiding your legs and call Ashley Regional today at 621-6465 for more information.
Ashley Regional Medical Center.
Welcome back to Local Point, everyone. We're talking about a walk coming up to raise awareness about sexual violence. So, when is it? What is it?
April 24th, Saturday, April 24th at 10 o'clock in the morning at the rec center. We're going to walk around the outside track, kind of. I guess it's kind of a track.
It's finally gotten warm enough that we can.
Yeah, it will be by the 24th. And we're just going to take a 2-mile walk and T-shirts to the first 100 people that get there, and we'll have a lot of information there for people as well.
Okay.
So
this is the Uintah County Recreation Center, in case you don't know where the rec center is. 500 South, I think, is, and 500 West.
Vernal Avenue.
Vernal Avenue and 500 South. Okay, so can they just show up? Do they need to pre-register? What's the...
Just show up that morning. We're looking for people, like Tanya said, the first 100 people there will receive a T-shirt. Just a great opportunity to come and get educated about what do you do if somebody talks to you or comes to you and lets you know that they've been a victim of sexual violence. Some information on maybe the numbers to go to and the people who can help.
And also what to do if you have been a victim of sexual violence, or if it happens to you in the future, so that you're not left hanging on where do I go, what do I do.
Right. And definitely, if you're a parent, this would be a good opportunity, because like you said, you get kids who are getting a little bit older. I mean, they don't have to be teenagers, but you said teenagers, 78% of them won't report it. So how, as a parent, do you become the confidant, the one that so that if something does happen to your kid, that they are willing to come to you? I mean, what are some of the reasons why somebody wouldn't report sexual violence?
Well, I think sometimes, there's a lot of myths and stigmatisms or stigmas out there that, people put blame on the victims. Well, if your skirt wasn't as short as it is, or if you weren't drinking, or, I told you not to go out with him, or, there's a lot of things that go around with that are victim blaming. But it doesn't matter what you wear. And if you were drinking, none of those things allow or give permission for someone to assault you in any way, shape, or form. So I think, a lot of times, especially with teenagers, maybe they have, been in some risky behavior that they know mom and dad would not be okay with. And so by them coming forward, they would not only have to talk about this incident, but they would also have to talk about what they did that went against mom and dad's rules. And so sometimes we need to, let them know how to make that work, how to, go ahead and tell me things. You might get in trouble, but we might be able to work through some of it as well.
Yeah.
Now, beyond the walk itself, which is a great opportunity for people to get information, to get involved, what can we do as a community in general, to help out? I mean, that statistic that we have such a higher rate of, 1 in, what you said, 86 kids you interview, and Salt Lake is 1 in 200, and it just seems, wow. So what do we do as a community?
There's a couple of things that we can do. Number one is being aware of what's going on, and being aware of how we react and how we teach our kids. That's the first step. that awareness, and that's what we want to do, is really create and help people understand that it's not someone else's problem, it's ours.
Well, we're just about out of time, so thank you again for coming. So one more time, when and where? The walk?
Saturday, April 24th, 10 a.m. at the Winter Recreation Center.
All right, everybody come out. Have a walk. It'll be a beautiful morning, I'm sure. And if it's not, you'll enjoy the walk anyway.
That's right.
So to find out more about that walk, you can call the Children's Justice Center at 781-0105 or the Vernal Victim Advocate Program. That number is 789-4250. Thanks for watching Local Point.